Alrighty. Okay, here we are for another Q&A, this time about a really outside the box topic, I think, from what you normally hear about in marine conservation, but super important equally. We're going to talk with Sian about the deep sea and kind of conservation issues going on there. So thanks for making the time for us, and start where we always start, give you a chance to introduce yourself and how you kind of got into diving in the first place, and the organisation that you're coming from, the Deepsea Conservation Coalition, who you guys are and why you exist.
Great, thank you so much for having me, Emma. It's a real pleasure to be here today. So my name is Sian Owen, and I am working now with the Deepsea Conservation Coalition. I've been with the coalition for about 10 years now. As part of a wider program of work that I do environmental consultancy with my own company, Sustainability Options Consulting. I've been working in ocean conservation now for about 20 years, and I think that grew out of a passion. I grew up in Indonesia. I'm Canadian by birth, grew up in Indonesia, and started diving in Southeast Asia, you know, as you and I'm sure all divers know, really the heart of marine and coral biodiversity in the world. So really excited to be able to dedicate my career to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is beautiful over there. I haven't been diving a lot all around Indonesia, but I was lucky enough to do a bit of diving off Bali, and it is just phenomenal and colourful, and I just love it. So I'm glad we're on the same page. I'm sure we're all on the same page. So why does the Deep-Sea Conservation Coalition exist? What are the threats going on out there in the deep sea that we are not really aware of?
So the Deep-Sea Conservation Coalition came together almost 20 years ago with a focus on getting fisheries, bottom trawling specifically, banned in the deep sea and the high seas. And so the coalition is now about 80 member organizations, but when it started, it grew pretty quickly from 10, 20, 30, 40 organizations, all of whom were focused on ocean conservation. Organizations, big ones, global ones like WWF and Greenpeace, right down to a number of smaller community groups in Costa Rica, in India, in a number of other countries. And all came together looking at the challenge of looking at the damage that bottom trawling as the most destructive fishing practice was doing to places that were completely out of sight, out of mind in the deep sea and the high seas. And the deep sea is really the water column below 200 meters. So it's a place that very few of us ever have the opportunity to see or go to. And it's a place that we also know very little about. So science knows more about the surface of the moon than it does about the deep sea floor. So the DSCC came together in 2004 to address the threat of deep sea fisheries. And since then, we've been working on a number of other issues of ocean governance, because it's become increasingly clear to all of us that it's all connected. Mm-hmm. And so the governance structures that we have in place to manage ocean health right now are sectoral, right? There's fisheries management organizations that deal with fisheries issues. There's cable associations for the cable issues. There's shipping, the International Maritime Organization on shipping, and so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. So there's a process now to negotiate a global ocean treaty for biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, which we're hoping very much will bring all of these issues together. Mm-hmm. And the deep sea, as 95% of the volume of the ocean overall, is obviously a pretty important component of how we best manage the ocean. So all of the threats that are hitting the ocean are cumulative and reinforce each other, if you like, in a negative way. So the pollution that we're all aware of, plastics, has been a massive topic, especially for divers. We see that right as we sort of skim the surface of the ocean to the 20, 30, max 40 meters depth that we can get to. Plastics are front and center. But we're also, as divers, seeing the impacts of climate change, for example, on our ocean as we watch reefs bleach and ecosystems lose their richness.
Yeah.
So into all of this, into this picture of sort of increasing and multiple stressors on the ocean, comes this new threat out of the blue, and it's something, as you said, that very few people know about or are talking about yet: deep seabed mining. And so this is a topic that our coalition has really taken on in the last 6 or 7 years. And in the early days, in sort of 2013, 2014, when we first picked it up, we were among the very few voices at the table. Now, what we're seeing, especially in the last year or two, our coalition is growing and continues to grow with more and more groups, member organizations, and increasingly partners who are also focused on this new emerging threat.
So what is deep sea mining? Because that's obviously very deep, right? How are they doing it, and what are they doing it for? There must be something good that they want in order to go to the effort.
Yeah,
was I guess obviously mining has just it'd be great to hear exactly how the threat works as well, like what is actually happening that's negative as a result of it.
So there is ocean mining already. There are mining operations for phosphate, for use in fertilizers in some parts of the world. There's mining for diamonds off the coast of southwestern Africa, for example. But what we're looking at when we talk about deep seabed mining is a whole new activity, a whole new scale of activity, focused on sourcing the metals for our transition economy effectively. So the metals that are needed for the vast increase in batteries for electric vehicles, in renewable energy technologies, as well as all of the technologies that we're using for our phones and our various devices. There are projections that demand for those metals are going to explode as we try and shift away from fossil fuels into a climate safe future, into a zero emissions future. So, there's a whole separate line of discussion and planning around how we can better redesign, reuse, repurpose, recycle. So that's a whole area of investment that we're really looking to promote and we're really encouraging. In the meantime, though, there's a separate line of separate proponents of deep sea mining are saying the only way that we can meet this demand is by going into the deep sea. So that's demand for metals like cobalt, nickel, magnesium, and these are metals that are found in different parts of the deep sea floor. So there's really 3 types of deep sea mining that they're looking at, and none of these have started yet. So this is very much a newly emerging industry, and it's one that
So it hasn't even started yet, but we just know it's not going to be good.
We know it's not going to be good, and if you look at so they've already there's 30 exploration contracts that have been given out by the International Seabed Authority, which is the UN body that was set up in 1994 to manage the seabed. So this is the body that meets in Jamaica at its headquarters in Kingston, Jamaica, and that has been given the mandate by the UN to both regulate any seabed mining that takes place outside of areas of national jurisdiction, and as well to effectively manage, to effectively protect the biodiversity of the seabed for the common heritage of humankind. So it's got this conflicting mandate, but it's already given out 30 licenses for exploration. So covering 1.3 million square kilometers of the deep seabed. So what this means is already 1.3 million kilometers have been licensed to countries and companies. So any companies that are working in this space need to be sponsored by a member of the ISA. So some of these license sponsors are Belgium, Germany, the UK, Japan, Russia, China, and a few of the small island developing states in the Pacific region, Tonga, Nauru, the Cook Islands. So there are a number of licenses and already given out, and a number of companies already busy with the exploration phase. None of these licenses have yet become exploitation licenses. But if they do, what we know from science is that scientists are saying that any mining in these space will cause permanent damage to the biodiversity, to the ecosystems down there. And given that we know so little about the deep sea, so little about the ecosystem services, the importance of the deep sea to the rest of ocean health, to planetary health, this feels like something too dangerous to start without knowing more about.
Yeah, definitely, because that was going to be one of my questions, is what's even down there, because we all know what it's like 0 to 50, you know, if you're a tech diver, plus meters, then so we know like the coral reef and the seagrass and that sort of thing, but what is it like down there? What do we know already, or do we know anything?
So one of the things that we do know is that every time an expedition goes down, we find more. So there's more and richer biodiversity every time we send something down. There are octopuses down there that are absolutely incredible. There are Dumbo octopuses and Casper octopuses that we've got footage of that is just incredible. The mother octopuses, the female octopuses, lay their eggs on the ecosystems that are associated with the manganese nodules, which are some of the resources that the miners are actually looking to bring up and extract minerals from. Okay. These octopuses sit on these nodules for up to 53 months, nurturing their young. There's some of the most incredible animals, the anglerfish, and all sorts of bioluminescence. And every time we go down, the pictures are just astonishing. I should share some of these with you, actually.
Yeah, please do. It'd be really nice to be able to share them, because it really feels like you say, it is this final frontier, and we know more about the moon than we do about the deep sea. And now we're talking about the potential of mining it, just destroying it, and before we even know what we've got. And I think for all of us alive now, this is a really unique situation where the damage hasn't already been done yet. A lot of the time nowadays we're dealing with the damage already begun, and we're now trying to turn the tide on that. And so this is a really, in some ways, really hopeful and like optimistic situation that we have a chance to try and stop the damage before it's done in the first place.
You've just summarized it perfectly. That's exactly what we see this opportunity, which is why we're calling for a moratorium on deep seabed mining. So we're asking for a pause, basically, a pause that gives us time for science to learn more, also more about the carbon sequestration capacity of the deep sea, because we do know that the deep sea, that the ocean itself absorbs a good amount of the carbon dioxide that we put into the planet. Yeah. And a lot of that is stored in the seabed itself. So what is the scraping away of the seafloor over tens of thousands of kilometers of the seabed that has already been licensed out? What is that going to do in terms of releasing carbon into the atmosphere at this moment that we don't need more? What is it going to do in terms of we're at a biodiversity crisis as well? So why are we talking about damaging biodiversity at the moment in time when we're at the sixth mass extinction? Similarly, in terms of the other current crisis that we're facing, the global health crisis, some of the ingredients for one of the COVID tests actually came from a hydrothermal vent area, which is another type of ecosystem that would be targeted by miners. So there's we've known for a long time that the deep sea is potentially home to genetic material that could be the next cure for cancer or the next cure for the next virus that comes up. So for all of these reasons, we're saying pause, press pause. Let's learn more about what this space is. Let's also make sure, let's have this global debate. Let's make sure that this common heritage of humankind, that humankind as a whole is actually on board with opening up a new frontier of extraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really interesting that a lot of the drive behind this new idea to go mining in the deep sea is driven by our hopes for a more renewable future, you know. So in some ways there's maybe positive intent behind some of the initial ideas. So in another way, it's a chance for optimism again, that maybe that it might be, I don't know, it's a hard one trying to turn the tide on climate change, isn't it? It's a very complex thing to move away from fossil fuels, but hopefully this will be a situation where we can take action to stop something before we start it and divert to a different option. You mentioned earlier about kind of recycling and reusing minerals. Do you think that or do you know if we already have enough materials in use on the land that we can reuse to meet those needs, or do you think it's just that the science says that we're definitely going to need to find an alternative solution or these minerals from somewhere to meet that?
The answer to that question, I heard an echo. The answer to that question depends on how, you know, whose projections, whose assumptions you're working with. So from our perspective, there's a few answers to that question. One is the question of reducing demand overall, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a tricky subject, because in some parts of the world, and you know, some of us have more than we already need, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a cultural shift in terms of, do we need to replace our phones every year? How frequently do we need to replace these things, as opposed to reusing and repairing and that kind of thing? So there's a culture shift needed among those who already have the materials. Then, you know, in other parts of the world, there's an understandable need for a growth in demand, because people don't yet have access to these products and materials that are necessary for a 21st century life. So in that case, then we should be looking, yes, there's a certain expectation that new minerals will be needed, that even if we greatly increase the recycling and the reuse of minerals that have already been taken out, and there's massive potential there that could really be driven by better policy response, both from government and from companies, right? There's a lot of investment potential there that could be driven. But yes, we accept that there may well be a need for new minerals coming into the system as well to meet this rising demand. But then the question is, what if we, you know, to what extent can those minerals be met by existing terrestrial mines, right? And there are huge issues with mining on land, huge social issues, huge environmental issues. And there's a lot of work being done to improve the supply chain from terrestrial sources. So that needs to continue. Yeah, very much support that. We're working with a number of groups who are supporting that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to switch to a whole new frontier of mining in a part of the world which is even harder to govern than the mines on land, and which could create even greater environmental damage that we don't even know about yet, right? We don't know what's down there, and we don't know what the impacts could be. So we're very much working with groups that are looking to improve the existing supply chains.
Yeah. Oh, it's all very interesting. It's all very complicated, isn't it, Han? Everything definitely all fits together. It's a complex world, but there's definitely a lot of cause for hope in this topic, I think. And so tell me, what can divers do? Anyone watching this now who wants to support what you guys are doing, what advice would you give?
There's a lot that divers could do. I mean, as a starting point, a lot of this talk goes to, UN negotiations and government decisions, and yet it also comes back to communities where people are diving. So some of the strongest resistance to seabed mining has come from community groups in the Pacific region, in Papua New Guinea, in Tonga, in the Cook Islands, and so supporting the activities of these local groups. We can all do this online. I mean, that's one of the beauties of the way the world works today. And even as we've all been sort of stuck in home at our computers, we can still go to these places and connect with these people and their movements online, even more so than ever. So one thing I would say that divers could do is sort of connect with the local communities and the places that they've been diving, or the places that they would love to dive, and really follow some of the activities of the local groups. And I can share some of these links with you.
Yeah, please do.
Share with the network. And then in their own sort of lives and spaces, I think it's really worth each of us really thinking, next time we go to replace our phone, do we need to yet? Can I reuse this can I use this a little bit longer? How much can I stretch out the lifetime of my car, of my phone, of my, whatever I'm using, so that I'm not just throwing it into an ever-growing pile of waste and creating demand for new minerals. I think it's also really important for us to communicate to our decision makers in our home countries, about this, to ask our governments to get involved and to call for a moratorium, to be on the side of press pause, let's know more before we create more pressure on the ocean. And so we've actually got a petition, and I can share that with you as well.
That was going to be my question. I was like, have you got anything already that people can add their names to, or kind of email templates that people can use to contact?
Absolutely. So yeah, please share, please sign the petition, and send a message to your own government to say, this is what we're asking for. This is we want to press pause. And then similarly, as consumers, we can all weigh in with the companies that we buy our products from, saying, letting them know as well that we don't want products that are created with minerals from the deep sea, that we're looking for more recycling, more reuse, just more sustainable use of our planet's finite resources. And then last, I would say, have these conversations. Talk to your friends about the ocean. They know you're a diver. What does that mean? And talk to them about more than just the kind of the beaches and the reefs that we can all access, but let's start informing ourselves about what else is down there.
Yeah, that's a good list of action points there. Definitely good list of things that we can all do. And I think that there's so much to having those conversations with people is something that we can all do, but is all in some ways the hardest to do. I think when you're with your friends or your family, it's easy to feel like they don't want to hear this, like I'm not gonna dampen the mood by bringing up this and that. But I think that it's all of our responsibility as people that know about this stuff to, maybe not every single time, but to find that time to bring it up and just get people thinking, put that on their agenda. Even amongst the diving community, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a new topic to a lot of people. So thank you for coming and explaining it all so eloquently. It's been really good to hear it, and really just cool that it's different from the usual issues. It's very there's so much new stuff to learn, and I'm sure there'll be lots of scientists out there excited about trying to figure out what's down there. So definitely send me any of those pictures that you have of stuff that is down there. I'd love to be able to share all of that with everyone. and I'll make sure that we include all of those little actions and send over those links for kind of the local groups that you mentioned, and yeah, let's see what we can do. So
great.
That has been, yeah,
It's so important, this kind of discussion. And yeah, thanks for inviting me on this. You've reminded me how much I miss not being in the water. So hope you get into the water sooner rather than later. And
yeah, fingers crossed for 2021. Fabulous. All right, well, have a lovely afternoon, and it was great to talk to you.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.